The world's first air-to-air missile was arguably more dangerous to the pilots who fired it than to the enemies it was designed to destroy. But yet it was considered revolutionary. But what even led to the development of such a dangerous missile, or should I say rocket? Because back then they were called rockets and now we call them missile. So missile, rockets, they all mean the same thing. Now during the early years of the World War One, a French lieutenant named this name that I can't pronounce um, designed the rockets because the Germans relied heavily on observation balloons for reconnaissance and artillery spotting. Now, how the Germans operated was that they tethered those balloons to the ground and they carried observers high above the battlefield where they could spot troop movement, identify enemy positions, and direct artillery fire with remarkable accuracy. Now, if you are the Germans, you wouldn't just leave the balloons tied up like that just to carry observers high above the ground for whatever thing they wanted to use it for. So the Germans cleverly protected them, like they guarded them heavily with anti-aircraft guns. So you wouldn't even dare to fly in to destroy the balloons or something. So I guess that was what was happening. Now the French quickly realized something, that if they could shoot these balloons down, they could effectively blind German artillery and severely disrupt their battlefield awareness. So naturally, their first idea was like, you know, why not even shoot these balloons down? But guys, trust me, that was easier said than done, because think about it. Imagine, imagine you're a pilot. Would you even dare to attempt like that suicide mission? Why I call it a suicide mission is because if you're a pilot, like you had to fly dangerously close to the balloons to have a chance of hitting them. And by doing so, it's just like you directly fly into a wall of anti-aircraft fire. If you're a pilot, you wouldn't even dare try to fly that close because it was like a suicide mission, just like I said earlier. Now, imagine if you're like this guy who would say,
Don't think, just do.
and you manage to get close enough to attack the balloons. There is still one final problem because those balloons were filled with hydrogen. And contrary to what we see in the movies, where they simply shoot hydrogen with ordinary bullets and they explode, guy, shooting hydrogen like that doesn't automatically cause an explosion because hydrogen needs an ignition source like heat or flame, and ordinary bullets wouldn't provide enough heat when they penetrated the balloon. So the bullets will just punch straight through the balloon's envelope and the hydrogen will leak out. Bullets couldn't ignite the hydrogen to burn down the balloons and bring them down. So the French were facing a frustrating problem and they needed a weapon that could set these aerial targets on fire from a safer distance. Remember, safer distance. Let's see if they actually answered that safer distance. So now their solution was the Le Prieur rocket. Guys, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this thing well, but their best solution was that missile. Yeah. So now the French kind of told themselves, like, yeah, we have fighter jets, we have fighter aircraft. Let me not call them jets. We have fighter aircraft. So why not design something that could be launched from the fighter aircraft to shoot down those balloons and set them on fire? So now then came the Le Prieur missile or rocket, anyone you call it. The rocket was basically a cardboard tube reinforced with a thin metal and filled with 200 grams of black powder, which the black powder did two jobs at once. Firstly, it propelled the rocket forward, and upon impact, it provided intense heat needed to ignite the hydrogen fueled balloons. At the front was a lightweight wooden nose cone, and some versions even carried a small blade at the tip, essentially turning the rocket into a flaming spear designed to pierce a balloon's fabric. Now, to keep the rocket flying straight, Le Prieur attached a 3-meter long wooden stick to the rear. The stick didn't just guide the rocket, remember the rockets were unguided, but it helped stabilize it enough to make it usable in combat. So with everything, the black powder and the rest, the rocket weighed around 1 to 2 kilograms and was fired electrically from the cockpit at the press of a button, at the press of a switch, or was it a button? I don't know. Switch and button, almost the same thing. And when they were fired, the rockets would fly at 100 meters per second and had an effective range of only 100 to 200 meters. And guys, this is where my problem came from the rocket. Fine, it was a good invention. They tried solving a problem, but a range of 100 to 200 meters, guys, that's where I start having a problem with this rocket. Now, let me explain what I meant. See, don't get me wrong. Like I said, it was a cool invention. I'm repeating it again, and since it was even built with the resources available then, in fact, it's cool. The rocket works. If you've heard of balloon bursting before, that was actually the rocket, and the fighter pilots and the fighter aircraft that did whatever thing they did to set the balloons on fire. They named the whole thing balloon bursting. But now the range was something I had a problem with, and let's get some things into consideration first before we do the math. Now, see what the pilots actually had to go through before they end up taking down a single balloon. Because the rocket couldn't guide itself, they were unguided, right? So the pilots will have to perform a steep dive at an angle of 45 degrees into the wing for two main reasons. One, accuracy. You get, so the aircraft had to be precisely aligned with the balloon, often while flying into the wing and closing to just 100 to 150 meters before launch. That the pilots have to fly at an angle of 45 degrees, align itself with the balloon, and launch the rocket when they've gotten to like a distance of 100 to 150 meters, and that's because of the range of the rocket. So that was the first reason. Now, the second reason was that the black powder produced smoke trails which could block pilot's vision, and the airflow helped blow the smoke trails away instead of letting it block the pilot's vision during the attack. So now let's go back to the range, because as I said earlier, that was why I actually had a problem with the rocket. Now, 100 to 200 meters might sound like a safe distance, but against those heavily defended balloons, it really wasn't. That's one. The second thing is considering the speed of the rocket, that's like 100 meters per second, right? And then a massive range of 150 meters before the missile will be launched, right? And now an aircraft like the Newport 16, which existed then, could attain speeds of 165 kilometers per hour at sea level. You could see that the range was very dangerous. Now, hold on, let's do the math. Now, the aircraft could fly at 165 kilometers per hour, right? That's like 46 meters per second. And now, the launch distance is 150 meters. So now calculate the time it will take for the aircraft to cover that 150 meters. You will see that it will take the aircraft 3.3 seconds. Now, let's go to the rocket. The rocket flies at 100 meters per second, right? And now, the time it will take for the rocket to reach the balloon is 1.5 seconds. Let's visualize this whole thing. Look at what happens. At 150 meters from the balloon, the pilot fires, you see, and now the rocket reaches the balloon at 1.5 seconds. You see, and now the aircraft won't just stop. The aircraft still continues moving forward, and now it will take the aircraft 3.3 seconds after launch to reach that same balloon. So what do you think that is going to happen? You see, the rocket reaches the target first, you see, but the pilot is not far behind. So the pilot has few seconds to break away. It's either he dies or 10 before entering the same danger zone. So it's more like the pilots actually pursued their own missile, if that's making sense. I'm not saying the rocket wasn't fast though. It was fast, but it wasn't fast. Because even though it traveled faster than the aircraft, right, its short range forced pilots to get so close that they had only a few seconds to escape after firing. And that's why I said my problem was the range. So that was what the pilots had to go through, you see. So it only takes a skilled pilot to actually perform all those things at once because they didn't have ejection seat, they didn't even have autopilot, they didn't have modern flight instruments. So imagine a pilot diving at an taking a steep dive at 45 degrees, aiming at the balloon, aligning just for the aim, fire the rockets, and also pursue the rockets. You see, bro, I won't even have mind for that, honestly. Thumbs up to those World War One pilots because they really had balls. Come on. Aside the fact you're even flying to like a death switch or something. I don't know if that's actually what it felt like. But so that's my take on the range. And wait, that was even all. You see, instead of carrying 1 to 2 rockets, the fighter aircraft, just like the Newport series, mounted them in banks of 4 to 8 rockets under each wings. So now the pilot fired all of them at once, hoping that they could get a target. So you're firing like 8 balloons, like sorry, 8 rockets and a 4 rockets or 4 rockets, you see, hoping that you even get a hit. Now imagine the smokes coming out from the 8 of them, you see. So imagine you're a pilot, do you know what you're battling with? The steep dive, the smokes, and see, trust me, those pilots had balls. Thumbs up to those World War One fighter pilots because the whole thing just to get the mission done was really really insane. Come on, that's what is actually meant for the pilot. Now let's even consider the aircraft. You see, World War One aircraft were like they were lightweight. They were made with lightweight materials. They had low wing loading, which allowed for tighter turns. That's plus one, but their airframes were lightweight. You see, they were mostly made of wood and fabric. So diving too steeply could damage the wings. You see, that's my take. So aside the fact the whole maneuver of a thing, the whole mission would stress the hell out of the pilot. It can also stress the hell out of the plane. You see. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So now looking at the odds, right? The rocket solved its problem, but trust me, the risk was really too much. Like it was so much. Anyways, that's my take, no offense. But the truth was that the rocket still worked, like it worked. It brought down a lot of stationary balloons, you see. Like I said earlier, they were known for balloon busting and whole thing. Now remember, balloons was part of what existed during the World War. Zeppelins also existed then, and they were more maneuverable like the balloons. So with no guidance, do you think the rocket would even stand a chance against the Zeppelins? Leave me your answers in the comment section. Thank you and see you soon. Peace.